You've been lied to, not by words, but by noise, by the constant hum of conversation, the endless scroll of content, the rituals of productivity disguised as purpose. You've been trained to believe that connection is always good and that isolation is always dangerous. That being alone means something is wrong with you, that you're broken, antisocial, maybe even depressed. But here's the brutal truth. You don't avoid solitude because you're social. You avoid solitude because you're scared of what's waiting inside it. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a confrontation. And if you're looking for comfort, this isn't the place. What follows is not soothing. It's not a gentle reminder. It's a weapon, designed to slice through the lies you've built around your aversion to solitude and expose the truth you've buried under distractions. You've mistaken loneliness for danger, but it's not loneliness you fear. It's self-awareness. It's confrontation with the self. It's silence, the kind that doesn't ask for your opinion, your approval, or your identity. It just stares back, and in that gaze, you see what you really are. You see the performance. You see the roles you've been playing. You see the emptiness behind the smiles, the manipulation behind the kindness, the craving behind your service. And that's terrifying. Because for most people, their life is a structure built entirely on avoiding that mirror. And the moment you sit alone, truly alone, without music, without movement, without the audience, the structure begins to crack. So the world gave you an escape hatch. It told you solitude is selfish. It told you aloneness is dangerous. It told you the more friends you have, the more valuable you are. It told you to stay connected and never isolate. Not because it cares about your soul, but because a distracted soul is a compliant one. Solitude is dangerous, not to you, but to the system, because it forces you to stop performing. It forces you to listen. It forces you to realize how much of your life is performative, how much of your personality is adopted, how much of your confidence is borrowed. This isn't just philosophical, it's surgical, and it hurts, because the self you meet in solitude isn't always beautiful. It's raw, it's confused, it's violent, it's needy, it's brutal, but it's also real. And in a world that teaches you to be likable instead of real, that's the only place transformation can begin. So here's your warning. The rest of this video will not hold your hand. It will drag you, by the throat if it has to, into that room of silence you've been running from your entire life. You want truth? Then turn off the world and keep watching. Think of your mind as a fortress, not a modern one, a medieval one. Thick stone walls, iron gates, winding halls, and chambers deep underground where no sunlight reaches. Most people spend their lives decorating the outer walls. They polish the bricks, hang banners, place guards at the entrance. Also, the world sees a clean, noble surface, and they call that their identity. But here's the truth. That's not the fortress. That's the mask of the fortress. The real structure lies within, in the rooms you haven't opened for years, in the corridors you avoid, in the dungeons you pretend don't exist. And to walk alone, to enter solitude, is to descend into those halls, unarmed, unguarded, and face what lives there. This isn't poetic, it's anatomical. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The parts of yourself you've exiled, your rage, your hunger, your shame, your fear, your suppressed power, all hidden because they didn't fit the image of who you're supposed to be. And you buried them so deep you forgot they existed, but they didn't forget you. They wait, they fester, they become monsters in the dark. And every time you feel that strange anxiety while being alone, that discomfort, that itch to check your phone, to turn on music, to call someone, it's not boredom. It's the sound of the dungeon door rattling. It's your shadow asking to be seen. But here's the twist. You've been trained to fear that sound. Because confronting your shadow means admitting that the you present to the world is incomplete, maybe even a lie. That your kindness may be a mask for cowardice. That your discipline might be fueled by shame. That your humility is a strategy to be liked. And society doesn't want that confrontation. Why? Because unresolved shadows are predictable. They buy more. They conform. They need constant validation. They follow trends to avoid silence. They seek groups to avoid facing guilt. They serve systems because they're terrified of their own power. Jung wasn't a preacher of peace. He was a war strategist of the soul. He said clearly, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's the opposite of what you've been taught. You were told to chase positivity, affirmations, feel-good mantras. You were told to manifest light, to keep your vibrations high, to always move forward. But Jung said, dig down. Go where it's ugly. Go where it's uncomfortable. Go into the pit and drag your shadow out by the throat, not to destroy it, but to own it. Because the shadow, once integrated, becomes strength. Your repressed anger becomes boundaries. Your suppressed ego becomes direction. Your hidden sadness becomes compassion. Your forgotten desires become purpose. But none of that happens if you avoid solitude, because that's where the process starts. Not in therapy, not in a journal, not in a group retreat. In silence, in confrontation, in the cold, echoing stone chambers of your own mind, where the shadows lurk. And that's why you avoid being alone. Not because you're an extrovert, not because you love people, but because deep down, you know there's a war waiting in the silence, and you're not sure you'll survive it. But let's get brutally clear. Avoiding this war doesn't bring peace. It brings decay. Every part of yourself you refuse to confront festers. It shows up in toxic relationships, where you let people walk all over you because you never stood up to your own guilt. It shows up in addiction, where you numb the pain of a life disconnected from your real self. It shows up in sabotage, where every time you get close to something meaningful, your shadow whispers that you don't deserve it. It shows up in envy, where you resent others for living in alignment with the parts you've buried. You cannot escape this. You can only delay it. And the longer you delay it, the stronger the shadow becomes. Jung understood this better than anyone. He didn't offer comfort. He offered confrontation. He believed the most dangerous thing you can do is pretend you're a whole person when you've never met half of yourself. He warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Anything. They'll marry the wrong person, work the wrong job, follow false idols, become addicts, even start wars, just to avoid facing the emptiness within. So no, this isn't a video about self-care. This is about self-integration. And that only begins when you stop escaping. When you stop using people, productivity, entertainment, and spirituality as shields. Because those aren't tools, they're distractions, and you've used them to avoid the one confrontation that could actually set you free. You want power? It's not an ambition, it's an integration. You want peace? It's not an escape, it's in confrontation. You want truth? It's not in what you tell others, it's in what you admit to yourself when no one's watching. And that moment only comes in solitude. You've been decorating the outer walls of your fortress. It's time to descend. Open the doors, light the torch, and face what's been screaming beneath your feet for years. Not because you want to, because you must. Because if you don't, you will live as a puppet to your shadow instead of its master. And the world is already full of puppets. You want to face the truth? Then let's begin. First, look at your daily life. Where exactly does this fear of solitude show up? It's in the morning. The moment you wake up and reach for your phone before you've even breathed consciously. It's in the shower, where silence creeps in, so you blast music or a podcast just to fill the void. It's during your commute, when you feel the urge to call someone, message someone, scroll endlessly, anything to avoid being alone with your own thoughts. You call this staying informed or entertainment, but it's not. It's evasion. This fear shows up in your relationships too. You stay in shallow connections just to avoid feeling isolated. You accept invitations you don't care about. You laugh at things that don't amuse you. You agree with things you don't believe, all to avoid the echo of silence that follows when you say no. And in your work, you stay busy. You fill your calendar, you grind, not always for progress, but for distraction. You hide from the awareness that maybe, just maybe, your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. These aren't quirks, they're strategies. Unconscious, yes, but strategic. You're engineering your own disconnection to avoid meeting yourself. Second, why do the usual solutions fail? Because the system that taught you to fear solitude is the same one trying to sell you its cure. You're offered surface-level fixes, meditation apps with ocean sounds, social media breaks, digital detoxes. They make you feel like you're healing, but they're just aesthetic bandages over a surgical wound. Because none of them force you to actually confront what you've buried. You go to therapy, but you censor yourself. You journal, but you edit the page. You take solitude walks, but you bring your headphones. And you think you're evolving, but you're not. You're escaping, just more elegantly. Even spiritual paths get corrupted. You chant, fast, burn sage, but never actually sit in the furnace of your own psyche. You want rituals without revelation. You want catharsis without confrontation. And that's why it doesn't work. Because it's not painful enough. Because it's not honest enough. Because it doesn't drag the truth out of you screaming. Now let's build something that does. Third, how do you begin to apply this? Concretely, step by step. You start with deliberate deprivation. Not forever. Just long enough to pierce the surface. 1 hour a day. Absolute silence. No screens, no books, no movement, no tasks. Sit on the floor, on a chair, on the edge of your bed. It doesn't matter. Just sit, with nothing but yourself. You will resist it. Your brain will claw. You'll remember errands. You'll feel urges. You'll feel sick. That's normal. That's the armor cracking. Next, observe what surfaces. Don't judge it. Don't run. Just let it rise. Shame, bitterness, strange memories, intrusive thoughts. That's the shadow, emerging from the dark. Your only task is to witness it. Name it. Not to change it, but to claim it. Then, write it down. Uncensored. Brutally honest. Not for Instagram. For yourself. The page is your battlefield. If you edit your confessions, you're still hiding. Now, track the patterns. Look for echoes. When does your need to connect spike? Who do you chase when you're anxious? What kind of conversations do you start when silence grows? What do you crave and what are you running from? Because here's the truth. The shadow is not random. It's rhythmic. It follows patterns. And if you map those patterns, you gain control. You start becoming the fortress, not its prisoner. Fourth, understand the real war. The tension between forces inside and outside you. Carl Jung taught that inner transformation always meets outer resistance. He named two forces, the self and the collective. The self seeks integration. The collective seeks assimilation. You've been shaped by the collective, family, school, religion, media. And what they demand is obedience, belonging, conformity. That's why solitude feels threatening, not because it's unnatural, but because it breaks the collective spell. When you sit alone, you begin to hear your own voice, and the collective hates that. It calls you arrogant, it calls you selfish, it calls you antisocial, mentally ill, unstable, not because you are, but because you stopped dancing to their music. You will feel this war every time you try to detach. People will pressure you, your mind will sabotage you. The world will offer shiny things, just to bring you back. You must be ruthless. Learn to disappoint others. Learn to be misunderstood. Learn to carry your own silence like a sword. This isn't romantic. It's violent. The battle for your soul won't be fought on battlefields. It'll be fought in bathrooms, bedrooms, notebooks, and long walks alone. And if you don't win it, someone else will own your voice. Fifth, master the strategies to remain sovereign, even when the world fights back. The key is to ritualize solitude, not as a punishment but as preparation. Make it sacred. Create a physical space, however small, that belongs to your process. No distractions, just reflection. Use it daily, like a warrior sharpens his blade. Next, build a shadow dialogue. Write letters to parts of yourself you've exiled. The jealous one, the angry one, the needy one. Let them speak. Don't argue. Listen. Let their truths surface. Because when they're heard, they stop hijacking your life from the shadows. Then train your nervous system. Solitude is not just psychological, it's biological. Your body resists it with panic, cravings, and tension. Learn breath control, cold exposure, stillness. Face discomfort on a sensory level, so your body stops treating solitude like a threat. Surround yourself with the right threats. Read brutal authors. Watch real thinkers. Expose yourself to voices that challenge your mask, not comfort it. Let intellectual pressure replace emotional anesthesia. Finally, declare war on comfort. Comfort is how the shadow survives. Growth lives in the rupture. If you feel too safe, you're probably still asleep. This isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming exact, strategic, conscious, ruthless where it matters, with your habits, with your excuses, with your avoidance patterns. You want to master solitude? Then stop treating it like a retreat. Treat it like combat. Because what you meet in solitude will either become your weapon or your weakness. You decide. Now you've seen the battlefield. No more illusions. No more excuses. No more hiding behind noise, busyness, or fake connection. You've been performing your whole life, smiling, serving, obeying, all to avoid facing the one thing that could actually change you, yourself. But now you know the truth. And knowledge without action? That's cowardice. So here's your challenge. Not a suggestion, not a thought experiment, a demand. Sit in silence today, 1 hour. No phone, no stimulation, no movement. Just you and the thing you've been running from. And when you do it, really do it. Declare it. Write it publicly. I met my shadow. No context, no explanation. Just that. Because once you write it, you've crossed a line. And there's no turning back. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to stay soft. You're here to reclaim the parts of you that were buried, burned, and silenced. You want peace? Face war first. You want light? Walk through darkness. You want authenticity? Tear the mask off, even if it takes skin with it. The fortress is yours now. Stop guarding the gates. Start ruling the depths. Because the longer you avoid being alone, the longer you remain a stranger to your own power. And this world, this loud, panicked, performative world, does not need more strangers. It needs warriors.